How to Read a Book, which is a fantastic book, probably my most recommended book ever. And I just thought I'd read out the ending part of it because it really drills home the importance of this book. Now, if you want to know about how to read a book, you can go to discuss.beverly.me, my cooperative, and click bookworms, and then there will be how to read a book, and you can find my own notes and the community's notes as well as our two meetings. We did two live streams on this on the Beverly YouTube channel, so you can find it there. Now that that's done, let me read out this end quote, which is really good. So this is the Kindle app on the Mac. So, there is a strange fact about the human mind, a fact that differentiates the mind sharply from the body. The body is limited in ways that the mind is not. One sign of this is that the body does not continue indefinitely to grow in strength and develop in skill and grace. By the time most people are 30 years old, their bodies are as good as they will ever be. In fact, many persons' bodies have begun to deteriorate by that time. But there is no limit to the amount of growth and development that the mind can sustain. The mind does not stop growing at any particular age, only when the brain itself loses its vigor. My goodness. Anyone know how to pronounce that? I have no idea. Sensens? It doesn't matter. I'll find out another time. Only when the brain itself loses what? Senescence. Only when the brain itself loses its vigor in senescence does the mind lose its power to increase in skill and understanding. This is one of the most remarkable things about human beings, and it may actually be the major difference between Homo sapiens and any... Hold on, I need to move this to 2-column span so that way I can actually read it. Well, sorry. I just reduced the thing because the column width is too high for me. Alright, I think maybe you'll still be able to read that. I just do 2 pages. Alright, we're picking up here. But there is no limit to the amount of growth and development that the mind can sustain. The mind does not stop growing at any particular age, only when the brain itself loses its vigor. Insentience. Does the mind lose its power to increase in skill and understanding? This is one of the most remarkable things about human beings, and it may actually be the major difference between Homo sapiens and other animals, which do not seem to grow mentally beyond a certain stage in their development. But this great advantage that man possesses carries with it a great peril. The mind can atrophy, like the muscles, if it is not used. Atrophy of the mental muscles is the penalty that we pay for not taking mental exercise, and this is a terrible penalty, for there is evidence that atrophy of the mind is a mortal disease. There seems to be no other explanation for the fact that so many busy people die so soon after retirement. They were kept alive by the demands of their work upon their minds. They were propped up artificially, as it were, by external forces. But as soon as those demands cease, having no resources within themselves in the way of mental activity, they cease thinking altogether and expire. Television, radio, and all the sources of amusement and information that surround us in our daily lives are also artificial props. They can give us the impression that our minds are active because we are required to react to stimuli from outside. But the power of those external stimuli to keep us going is limited. They are like drugs. We grow used to them, and we continuously need more and more of them. Eventually, they have little or no effect. Then, if we lack resources within ourselves, we cease to grow intellectually, morally, and spiritually. And then we cease to grow. And when we cease to grow, we begin to die. Reading well, which means reading actively, is thus not only good in itself, nor is it merely a means to advancement in our work or career. It also serves to keep our minds alive and growing. And that's the end of the book. Now let me just go back a little bit to here, because if you just jump into live stream, maybe that'll be a little bit weird. But it's really the last few chapters kind of bring it home. So it's about syntopical reading. So you read many different books to kind of get the answer, and you become the master of the books rather than books becoming a master of you. But there's a balance between the two. So they argue just earlier on about the great books are probably only 1,000 or so books ever published, and then of them, the real greats, those which keep giving through the rest of your life, are probably only 100. And reading them will actually give us greater understanding and actually help us through the world. And there's a big distinguishment that they make between that which gives us information, understanding, and that which gives us, or information and that which gives us understanding. And you can find more details actually about that on the Beverly YouTube channel. So you'll see here we've got 2 links to discussions on the discuss.beverly.me forum. So we have this first discussion, which we kind of talk for reading for significance, understanding, and information. So you can watch this great, this one that Beverly did while we're still the Jordan B. Peterson community. And, you know, listen to us talk for 4 hours about the impact that this book had on us. And then here, a week later, we did the syntopical reading one. But that was kind of more general about the impacts of this book going forward and what it will have on our life, because what happens is the book, at the end, they publish the great 137 books, or at least in these categories, because we can see a lot of these actually have multiple books under them. So I should say the great 137 works by different authors. And that's actually what we'll be focusing on for Beverly starting in June or July this year. We'll be working through all of these books. You can find that if you go to, again, discuss.beverly.me, click the meetings link, you'll find it throughout the website. You can click the you can join them too, or the thing which says join the meetings, and you'll find all about it. And then here we've got Aura, and Aura will show you the schedule that we have for the meetings. So we've already got everything for our weekly meetings done up until June or July. Yeah, so up until July. So in July we'll start reading the greats that were outlined in this book. So we can see them all here. I've already added them to the schedule. And then these are the ones we're going to be reading in the coming weeks. So this week we're doing the Eastern World War II history. But I just really wanted to share that because I think it really drills home the importance. So again, what's the difference between one that raises understanding? Well, I already know. I don't have to read it out specifically. So something that reads from information, it gives us new facts or new information about the world with our existing understanding of it. So it's something that kind of cements our own understanding rather than grows it. Whereas reading something for understanding, then it's something that actually elevates us further to the level of the author. So if we completely understand a book, then we should be on the same level of the author who wrote it. So with most books, they're just trying to communicate information and communicate some facts. We understand those facts now. We're at the same level of comprehension as the author, of that same understanding as the author. Whereas, and with the same information that was communicated through the book. Whereas a book that's one of these greats that they've outlined, then this will be something that dramatically raises our understanding of the world. So, for instance, here's Immanuel Kant. Later, there will be Nietzsche as well. Let me see if I can find it. There's Marx, Dostoevsky, Nietzsche. So we've already read Beyond Good and Evil on the Beverly channel. You can find that. So if we click Beverly on YouTube or search Beverly, then you will find, if we go playlists and click reading group, let's just click view full playlists, then you'll find one here, Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. So that's for our discussion where we break down the book bit by bit and argue. Again, the point of the meetings is to test our personal wisdom. So test what we understood from the book and then develop it further to really cement the understanding in each other. So we talk about Beyond Good and Evil for quite a while. So we've actually already read, I think, one or two of these books, and those books, so yeah, we would have had Dostoevsky's, it was just there earlier. Where is it? Yeah, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. That one was actually another one we have. So if we go here, discussing Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, that one was another one that was absolutely outstanding. We still reference it all the time in our meetings because it's such a good book. We actually referenced it a lot in our last meeting, all about Easton Jordan B. Peterson wisdom here, because the characters in it are very meta characters and they apply so much to life. So the goal really is then to read for understanding. And let's see, the number's even less than any given reader. Right, blah, blah, blah. So this one, I'll just read this bit here, the pyramid of books. The great majority of several million books that have been written in Western tradition alone, more than 99% of them will not make sufficient demands on you for you to improve your skill in reading. This may seem like a distressing fact and the percentages may seem an overestimate, but obviously considering the numbers involved, it is true. There are the books that can be read only for amusement or information. The amusement may be for many kinds, and the information may be interesting to all sorts of ways, but you should not expect to learn anything of importance from them. In fact, you do not have to read them analytically at all. Skimming will do. So I think it's just so nifty because a lot of the mistakes I fall into is exactly what it said on this last page about, you know, these things are drugs. We grow, so they are like drugs, we grow used to them and we continuously need more and more of them. Eventually they have little or no effect. And there's so many YouTube channels out there now, like Crash Course, Wendover, Real Life Law, things like that. And these are interesting. They give you good information. Maybe 1 out of 20 of them kind of gives me a little bit of insight to how the world works. The one about Africa being China's China was really fascinating to me. I actually referenced it in the most recent post that I did on the Beverly Forum, which was Google Stadia. So I raised some concerns about nationalism versus globalism. I think globalism will win because it allows the globalists to play more tricks than the nationalists can play with, which is they can have more alliances and outcompete because they have greater mass. Not this Grammarly ad, but the actual video behind the Grammarly ad, how Africa is becoming China's China by Wendover, kind of added a lot of interesting insights to me about that. But when we talk about insight, that's kind of still more on the level of information rather than something that is allowing my brain to actually really understand the world better. And they write it here. A good book does reward you for trying to read it. The best books reward you most of all. The reward, of course, is of two kinds. First, there is the improvement in your reading skill that occurs when you successfully tackle a good, difficult work. And second, this is the long run, is much more important. A good book can teach you about the world and about yourself. You learn more than how to read better. You also learn more about life. You become wiser. Not just more knowledgeable, books that provide nothing but information can produce that result, but wiser in the sense that you are more deeply aware of the great and enduring truths of human life. And I think it's just And it's quite interesting. I'll read this out. It's not it's this one's kind of more an interesting point about it. The key is at the end of that one. There are some human problems, after all, that have no solution. There are some relationships, both among human beings and between human beings and the non-human world, about which no one can have the last word. This is not true. This is true not only in such fields as science and philosophy, where it is obvious that final understanding about nature and its laws, and about being and becoming, has not been achieved by anyone and never will be. It is true of such familiar and everyday matters as the relation between men and women, or parents and children, or man and God. These are matters about which you cannot think too much or too well. The greatest books can help you to think about them because they were written by men and women who thought better than other people about them. And this is quite a good thing, because on my Twitter, uh, here, this one will link to my Twitter. We will see that the uh, I quoted How to Read a Book earlier. Okay, so that's the Syntopicon. Here we go. Rather to be found if all. Okay, this one. Rather, it is to be found, if at all, in the conflict of opposing answers, many if not all, which may have pervasive evidence and convincing reasons to support them. The truth then, insofar as it can be found, the solution to the problem, insofar that it is available to us, consists rather in the ordered discussion itself than in any set of propositions or assertions about it. Thus, in order to present this truth to our minds and to the minds of others, we have to do more than merely ask and answer the questions. We have to ask them in a certain order and be able to defend that order. We must show how the questions are answered differently and try to say why. And we must be able to point to the text in the books examined that support our classification of answers. Only when we have done all of this can we claim to have analyzed the discussion of our problem, and only then can we claim to have understood it. We may, indeed, have done more than that. A thorough analysis of the discussion of a problem may provide the groundwork for further productive work on the problem by others. It can clear away the deadwood and prepare the way for an original thinker to make a breakthrough. Without the work of analysis, that might not have been possible, for the dimensions of the problem might not have been visible. So this is in response to people who kind of think that that adding. So I had a rant about this actually in our latest thing, the Jordan B. Peterson's Wisdom in Eastern Cinema, and I read out that exact quote here. So it's at the 2:42. 2 hours 42 minute mark, and it was in response to someone who sent me an email and said that they didn't want to add their opinion on something because they felt like they researched something and they came to a conclusion and they didn't want to publish their thoughts on it because they felt they would just be adding to the noise and there's too much noise in the world. But the thing is, if you actually understand something, then you're actually publishing signal. And if you're not willing to publish signal, then you probably don't understand it. Because if you actually understand it, then you have a moral obligation to publish it and enhance the understanding of others. And it is quite a sad state if someone feels that all the information they have in the world is just noise that can't elevate the signal of other people. And, sure, there's probably a bunch of narcissists who think that their poor thought out thoughts are noise. Our signal when they're actually noise. But then, as that quote just outlined from the book, it's about then engaging in discussion to then eliminate noise to find signal. And that discussion is what is important because then it provides new original thought. So publish the ideas, find the signal, be welcome to criticism, and find the signal from the noise and throw out the noise. That's the process. And as the book perfectly sums up, which I'll end the stream on, uh, reading well, which means reading actively, is thus not only good in itself, nor is it merely a means to advancement in our work or career. It also serves to keep our minds alive and growing. So again, if you check out the books, a book on the discuss.beverly.me page, and join our discussions in the weekly meetings, because we'll be eventually reading all these grades. Alrighty, that's all I want to cover in that one. Peace.